I'm going to get me one of those signs. I am not a doll, do not play with me. Hi, I'm Phil, welcome to my channel where I talk about all the geeky pop culture that I like and consume, including things like Doctor Who, Red Dwarf, and Star Trek, of course, which is what we're here to talk about today because there is a brand new episode of Star Trek Lower Decks out, and it is called, consult my notes because I can never remember titles, Kayshon, His Eyes Open. That's the title. There will be spoilers in this review, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, go away, watch it, come back later, and we can talk about it. Overall, this episode I thought was quite a good one. There were some nice character moments. I thought a little bit of development for Mariner. Boimler had some... There were some things, little things, but that slightly bugged me. But mostly towards the end. Overall, I quite liked this episode. It was, I had a good time during this episode. It wasn't quite as laugh out loud funny as last week's was for me, but it was good. And it did kind of continue the resetting to status quo by the end of the episode. And I'll have some things to say about that later on. But overall, yeah, good, solid episode. At the beginning of the episode, we find out that there is a new member of their crew, what do they call it, their shift pattern being added to basically to replace Boimler. Quite why it's taken this long, I don't know. He's been gone for a while by this point, surely. You'd think they would have rotated in somebody else by now onto Z shift, was it? And that member of the crew is Jet, who we have seen previously in season 1 at some point. He has been assigned to the team, and there is a kind of friction between him and Mariner, because as soon as she says, "Oh, I'm the one that's kind of in charge," there's a look on his face that's like, "Oh, really? We will see about that." And that is the kind of friction that builds up throughout for the episode, this kind of vying of who's top dog in this team, who's going to make the decisions. And that is kind of this kind of theme of competition is one that plays out in the episode in various ways. Via these two, via the collector character later on as well, who has some lines, has a line about his fellow deceased collector, instantly pointing out that he has a better collection than I know. Like, I have a better collection than he does, a bigger collection. There's this kind of rivalry theme of competition between people that plays out mostly between those two and the collector, but also with Boimler later on, Boimler with himself later on, and also slightly the captain as well, although she hasn't got a sort of counterpart to be competitive against. She's being competitive against her own flaws, and I suppose the assessment she's going on for the command assessment that she's on as well. Jet and Mariner's conflict kind of starts really kicking off in the communal showers, which a little bit weird. Is that weird? I don't know. I mean, that's probably that kind of thing. Communal showers probably happen all the time in the military, I guess, and this is kind of, though Starfleet isn't a military, they kind of are, and it's very much based off of the structures of a military. So I guess, yeah, I suppose the lower troops, the lower guys, the lower decks would have to shower together because they don't have individual bathrooms, they don't have individual quarters, they bunk on corridors. So I suppose that kind of makes sense, but slightly weird. I'm with Boimler here. Communal showering is weird. Communal showering, communal changing, sports centres, places like that, everywhere should just have their own little changing cubicles. Swimming pools, who wants to get changed around other people? That's just weird. But they get into this kind of macho facing off against each other. Hey, I can take a higher sonic setting than you on the sonic showers, and keeps turning it up, and no, I can do better and I can turn it up. And they're building up this kind of rivalry here, which at this point in the episode, where they're doing this in a way that's led to believe it's purely ego. We find out later in the episode it's not. It's simply different ways of thinking through situations, and their ways are clashing. But it's kind of portrayed at the beginning of the episode, I think quite deliberately, as ego, and they both kind of want to be the top dog in the team. We also get introduced to a brand new head of security because, of course, Shaq's last season, poor Shaq, that was his name, wasn't it? Shax, I think so. Died at the end of the last season. Again, they seem to have gone a long while before appointing their new head of security. Like, I know it's only been like 2 episodes in terms of episode count, but we figure time has elapsed between then. They would have replaced. I would have expected to have maybe seen this last episode, but hey, they obviously, the bureaucracy of Starfleet takes its time to appoint people. Is basically what we're saying here. He is the first Temerian, I think it was, in Starfleet, which is a race that speaks predominantly, I think they were in a TNG episode, in metaphor, and apparently the universal translator has been configured to overcome that, but sometimes it doesn't quite get through. So we get the occasional metaphor, and he has to go, hold on, no, what? And then somebody else helps him out with what that means, and yeah, it's a running sort of gag throughout the episode. It kind of works. They don't overplay it, I don't think. It's a nice reference back to a TNG episode. And a nice little in-continuity explanation to why we don't get... Because I think in that TNG episode, they spoke all the time in metaphors. So that line about the universal translator covers that. So we don't get that all the time, and we can just have it as an occasional gag. He's also what the episode is named after. His name is Kayshon. So he's in the episode title. For someone in the episode title, I think he wasn't very much of a focus on the episode, which is a little bit strange. But hey, fair enough. Whatever. This head of security and our little team of lower decks crew have been sent over to a collector's ship, which I don't think we've heard of this collector's guild before. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But they are a guild of people that just collect interesting stuff. They've got a lot of Starfleet stuff. They've got a lot of... when we go over to the ship, there are Easter eggs, I'm sure, galore in the background of that shot as we walk past cabinets full of stuff. I didn't take a note of what all the Easter eggs were. I'm sure there were a lot. Somebody else, I'm sure, will make a video on that. Go find it if they do. If I find one, I'll link it below. So they're these collectors, and there's this guild and this code of the collectors. So as one of them has died, it's this other one's job to go in and auction off all of his stuff. And he's requested Starfleet's help because there might be some dangerous things in there. So, to move the dangerous stuff, basically. And yeah, there's that competition again, because this character is all very one-upmanship in terms of this collector character that we meet. Is very, my collection's better than his, wants the best. He's very much competitive. This whole collector's guild, I'm guessing, is a very competitive environment. As also evidenced by the fact that this collector that has died has set up lots of automated defenses which they accidentally activate because he doesn't want people stealing his stuff. One of these automated defenses turns our new head of security into a puppet, which I feel there was a little bit of a wasted opportunity there. They didn't do much jokes with the puppet, because there was the joke at the end, which I've already alluded to in my opening, where he has a sign on him in the medbay afterwards saying, "Please do not play with me, I'm not a doll." So there's that, and that was a good joke. I like that. But I feel they could have done some more with the puppet stuff. I was kind of, when he first got turned into a puppet, I was kind of hoping we were going to get a sort of speaking puppet type thing, sort of like in that episode of Angel, if you've ever seen that show, where Angel gets turned into a Muppet-like creature. And he's walking around still doing his angel stuff, but he's now just that tall and a Muppet. Something like that might have been funny, but maybe that wouldn't have been as good as it was in live action. I don't know. But I feel like they could have done more with the puppet, is basically what I'm saying. Especially given the episode is named after this guy. He stops being in it, halfway through. And he's just a puppet that gets carried around. And then they get attacked by evil robot flying vacuum cleaners. I have one of those. Mine doesn't fly, but I have a robot vacuum cleaner, and it does attack me, so I empathize there. It attacks my feet all the time when I'm at my desk. It just suddenly, it'll hit my feet, and the little swirly things that collect in the dust will catch my feet, and it'll hurt. So I feel their pain there. and there were lots of them, to try and get out of this whole nasty situation. Mariner comes up with a plan, Jet comes up with a different plan. There's a conflict there again. They're both trying to say, no, my way is best, no, my way is best. And this is where we start to get to see more of it not just being they want to be top dog. That is still there, but it's kind of that they've got different styles. Initially, it seems that Jet is very much a bit like Boimler, kind of follow the rules type thing, which Mariner doesn't like, because she's much more go in headstrong, think about things as you're doing it, don't think things through too much first, act on impulse. And it turns out more towards we get a nice moment of realization from them, where both of their plans have kind of like proven to be not helpful, and they've gone, well, I'm not a by the book. I'm not like Boimler, Jet says. I'm not all like, and he takes a mick of Boimler a little bit. He just wants to think things through before he does them to try and get the best possible outcome. And Mariner's style of leadership is more going headstrong, as I said. And they've gone, well, both of our things aren't working here. What can we do? And then they had this realization that, okay, maybe neither of our approaches will work. Let's ask the other guys. And they ask Tendi and Rutherford, and Tendi gets them out of the situation by thinking of something. And when asked, well, why didn't you say that before? She says, well, you guys were leading. So there's some nice stuff about like examining leadership styles, and that kind of crosses over with the captain as well, who has been told not to micromanage so much, but her not micromanaging this and not checking up on what's going on has led to this situation where the Cerritos could have sent someone to help if they had checked and found out that something was wrong. So there's this kind of also this theme of examining, as well as the competition theme, there's this theme of examining your kind of leadership style and what might work. And I think that's going to be something for Mariner possibly going forward throughout the season. She's learnt to... She didn't want to step up before. She wanted to be the kind of person that sat in the background in the first season and just kind of like, hey, I don't want to step up, I don't want to do anything, I just want to lounge around because I haven't accepted that I could be that person. And she came to the realization by the end of the first season that she could indeed be a leader. Now she is working out what kind of leader she wants to be, and that was a nice exploration of that here. Now, all the while that's going on, we've got Boimler, because Boimler wasn't in the first episode very much. He's in this episode. We flash back to his adventures on the Titan, where they are fighting the Packleads again. I kind of thought at the end of the last episode that we were gonna... That kind of looked like they were about to be sucked into some kind of weird dimension and they would need to be rescued from it. Apparently not. They just start this episode. Whatever happened last time didn't matter. It wasn't a cliffhanger that was going to get resolved in on screen. They're just fine, but they're fighting the Packleads again. And Boimler gets sent down. He's kind of a bit out of his depth here. We see him panicking on the bridge again a bit. We see him not really keeping up with the briefing mission when he's getting briefed on the mission to go down as an undercover operative with a group. And he's got loads of, he's got several pads that he's dropping and trying to work out what they're talking about, and is not really keeping up. So they've got that, and he gets sent down as part of an undercover mission with these group of like hardened battle sort of eager people that are very much into the, hey, yeah, let's go kick some ass. And he's like, I just want to explore and find new worlds and discover new stuff. And so there's this nice little conflict of him not really fitting in to the makeup of the Titan. And his way of working of following the rules, again, we saw this last season where sometimes that's what you need to do, and sometimes Mariner's approach is what you need to do. Well, here, his team, the team he's on, decide to attack someone that they think they need to attack. It turns out not to be a person, it's a silhouette of food supplies, which then gets them compromised, and the Packleads realise they're there. Whereas Boimler was going, no, our mission parameters are to just go and do the task and not engage people unless we have to. The rest of the team are very gung-ho and want to engage, so they do. But Boimler has proved right. If they hadn't have gone and attacked that silhouette, which turned out to be a pile of food, they would have been able to sneak in there without any resistance, probably. So, again, Boimler proved right. And once they're fully on attack and they think they're possibly going to die because they can't beam out, there's some kind of interference, they're trapped in this room under attack by Pakleds. And, that's when Boimler says to them, well, look, I didn't join for this. I didn't join to fight and have laser fights. I joined to see the universe, to explore, to discover strange new worlds, etc., etc., etc. And I like the moment where there's this moment of realization where the rest of them kind of go like, yeah, I joined to discover new types of moss. And then there's the one guy who's just like, I joined because I like beaming. Likes beaming up and down from ships. Hey, look, everyone has a passion. If beaming's your thing, beaming's your thing. It's like the opposite of McCoy. But all this talking about beaming, and they're reminiscing and they're talking about the Enterprise D, because the other guys had been very dismissive of the Enterprise D before, about how they always, had recitals and, funny little weird adventures, whereas they're all about the action. But Boimler being enthusiastic about that gets him not talking about the time that there was a transporter duplicate of, transporter clone even, of Riker, aka Thomas Riker. And that gives him the realization of what he can do to get them out. And he goes over, makes the adjustments, and creates some kind of, the techno babble I kind of glossed over a little bit. Whatever he does something. And most of the team managed to beam up, but he gets a bit stuck. The field that's stopping them is reasserting itself, and so they have to push through that, and he eventually beams up. But then a shuttle comes up as well with another version of him on it, which they beam across, and now there are two Boimlers because he's been cloned in the same way that Thomas Riker was, that Riker was cloned into Thomas Riker. So now there are two Boimlers. And I both like some of this element and dislike some of it, what comes next from this element. I like it. I like the fact that they set it up with talking about the Riker stuff earlier on and the Riker clone earlier on, Chekhov's clone. But it's the consequences. I like that it allows him to get back to the Cerritos without it being him giving up. Because there's two of them on the ship now, two of them on the Titan, Riker says, well, we can't have two of you here. One of you has to go back to the Cerritos. And it ends up being one of them, obviously. And that's a good solution, I think, because I didn't want it to be that he kind of just decided, oh no, I don't like it here. This is too stressful. It would have felt like he had failed then. Also, I didn't want him to get fired or demoted. We'll get back to that. I didn't want him to get demoted off the Titan because... again, that would have felt like he failed. That would have kind of nullified some of the character development. But I think having a clone and going, well, one of you has to go somewhere else, so you might as well go back to the Cerritos, makes sense. What doesn't make sense is that one of him would get a demotion. Why? Why would he be demoted? He's earned that. That clone has all the memories, everything. They are exactly the same at this point, theoretically. He should still have the same rank. Why would he be demoted? Send him back to the Cerritos, but send him back as I can't remember what rank he is now, lieutenant or whatever he is. That would have also been interesting because, yeah, they're clearly trying to get everything back to the status quo of what it was before. And I kind of get that because the show is lower decks. And if you have one person there that's a higher rank, maybe it would upset that dynamic, but I actually think it would have been interesting to have him go back as someone who outranks the other ones, but still be assigned to work with them. So, that's the only space for him on the ship. He still gets assigned to them, but now he is officially in charge of the shift because he outranks the rest of them, and seeing the conflict that creates with Mariner and the comedy that creates as well, with him maybe being unsure, second-guessing himself, all that kind of stuff. I think that could have been really interesting. And, maybe towards the end of the season, they could have engineered some way to demote him again if they needed to. but just to demote him straight away seems very wrong in universe. It misses potential. It just returns everything to the status quo, which is a little bit boring. It would have been nice to do something different. The other clone gets to stay on the Titan, and interestingly, almost instantly has a bit of a different personality, because not only does he not volunteer to go back to the Cerritos, which the other one thought he stepped forward and volunteered, but he thought the other clone was going to as well, and he didn't. So there's already something different there. And he's very much more at ease talking to Riker. He's, as we see going out, he's like, I've been thinking of changing my name to Will. He's like much more confident instantly. Why is that? Has something altered so he's not an exact duplicate? We'll find out. I'm looking forward to hopefully him coming back as well. I'm sure they won't just abandon this as a plot line. We're going to see the Titan again, and we're going to have Boimler versus Boimler at some point. I hope they don't go that he's full evil, but I want there to be some kind of conflict between them. Some kind of ongoing conflict would be good. Anyway, talking of rank, we get a nice little joke at the end where Jet and the other Lower Decks crew, before Boimler turns back up, are in there, and Rutherford says, you've been promoted, because he's got an extra pip. Now, this is a long time thing within Star Trek that fans have noticed the inconsistency with the amount of pips on people's rank pips on people's uniforms. Like, one episode there'll be one rank, the next episode there'll be another, then they'll be back again, and people come up with all sort of theories of maybe between episodes they got demoted and then promoted again, blah, 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 blah. I like the explanation they come up with here, which is just that's just a bit of sweet corn that got stuck there. Sorry, yeah, that happens all the time. Anytime you see someone with the wrong pips on, that's just sweet corn. That is absolutely the kind of humour I'm here for in Lower Decks. Very meta, brilliant. So yeah, that is Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 2. I enjoyed it for the most part. I'm really a bit frustrated with the ending and how they resolved the Boimler thing. Mainly the demotion. Everything else, moving back to the Cerritos, the clone thing I actually really liked as a way of getting him off the ship. I just wish they hadn't demoted him. It doesn't make any sense. It just, it's annoying. But other than that, it was a good episode. That, and I wish they'd done more with the puppet, are my two main gripes with this episode. But other than that, it was a good episode. Good episode. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. I will be back next week for another review. It might be a bit later, because I'm on holiday next week, but it might be like Friday or Saturday that I'll be getting my review out next week. But thank you for watching. See you then. Goodbye.